So my name is Matt Hervey. I am general editor of The Law of Artificial Intelligence, which is a textbook for UK lawyers. I'm one of the founding members of the International Law Association for AI, and I'm head of legal and policy at a company called Human Native AI. Human Native AI is building a marketplace for licensing creative content for AI training. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to speak about the increasing performance of generative AI, the uses of generative AI by creatives, the central importance of creative content for training generative AI, the factors driving AI developers to begin to license creative content, and practical steps for licensing your content to AI companies. If I could have the next slide. So the first issue is the increasing performance of generative AI. These images show the improvements in output from the image generator Midjourney over its first year. And you'll see that in just 12 months, it moved from really unusable output to polished photorealistic images, which would be suitable for commercial use. And last year, it was estimated that their revenue from subscribing users was around $300 million in 2024. We've seen a similar pace of advances in text generators and significant advances in video, audio, music, avatars, and 3D models. So we're seeing in the last few years an increasing use of AI outputs on the internet, in magazines, etc. It started off as novelties. So we have the first ever AI-generated cover, which was Cosmopolitan. We've had 2 images which actually won art competitions where the judges were unaware that they were the outputs of AI. We've had a publisher caught out where they thought this was a human-generated work, and they had a big backlash from their fan base. And we have the concept of the deep fake, which is perhaps particularly relevant to a fashion audience because it claims to be the Pope in Balenciaga, but it is in fact AI-generated, entirely synthetic image. We're now seeing increasing numbers of artists deliberately engaging with AI. These are 3 artists represented by a UK agency, We Are Humane. And you can see that we are entering a phase, a bit like photography in the 19th century, where it saw rapid adoption. It created concerns about the future of art, but it became ubiquitous both in society and a respected form of fine art. I think many agencies are now exploring the use of AI. Some are promoting it to their clients. And in my experience, some agencies are being asked to use AI by their clients. And indeed, I've worked with a leading fashion house on its internal use of AI. The advantages include the rapid generation of ideas and previs, and it enables very cheap social media campaigns where copyright is not essential, particularly short-lived, highly targeted campaigns and viral imagery. Now, most machine learning relies on training data, and this trend was kicked off for the second time in computer science in around 2012. And machine learning is all about training a computer to recognize patterns. And in 2012, until about 2 years ago, that was all about using carefully curated specialist data sets of labeled examples. You take lots of images of lungs where people had COVID or didn't, and you train an AI to spot COVID in new examples. Or you take a video feed and you get humans to label all the cars and the people and train an AI to do the same. That was known as a classifier. But with generative AI, it is finding patterns in human creativity. Now, this dystopian example is what's called the Midjourney style reference. And you can see there are numerical codes in the black boxes between 4 digits and 10 digits long. Those numbers represent that entire style. So you put in a new subject matter, you put in your style reference, and that subject matter will be illustrated using that creative style. Generative AI is trained on creative content in order to find those patterns. It's no longer focused on carefully curated specialist data sets. Instead, it's trained on vast quantities of examples. Essentially, modern generative AI has been trained on the entire internet. And I'm giving two examples of commonly used databases. The first is the Common Crawl, which is a capture of the entire crawlable internet and which was used by most large language models. And the second is Leon, which is currently a collection of over 5 billion images extracted from the Common Crawl, and that was used to train image generators like Midjourney and Stability AI. These contain billions of copyright works belonging to individuals and companies, and the legality of training on these works is uncertain and may vary between countries, but it is certainly very controversial. Now, I'm just going to talk about a few trends which are driving AI companies towards more licensing of work from the use of images and text scraped from the internet. First, we've seen an explosion of litigation over the use of scraped contents. There's now about 30 cases ongoing in the US about this, plus cases in the UK, Germany, and India. And I've illustrated this with one of the well-known cases. This is Getty Images against Stability, who claim that their stock photos, such as the top left, were used to train an image generator, which generates works like the next image, even including a slightly garbled version of their watermark. The second big development is that many countries and regions are considering measures to strengthen the position of content owners, and that is especially true in the EU. The EU AI Act requires developers of general purpose AI, which probably covers most generative AI, to comply with copyright law generally, not to train commercial AI on copyright works where the owner has reserved their rights, and to publish a summary of the content they use for training. And the intention of this public summary is to enable rights holders to sue AI companies. The Act may also allow the EU to exclude from the EU market AI that has been trained entirely legally outside the EU, but in jurisdictions which do not offer the same level of protection for rights holders. The third development is that AI developers are constantly competing over performance, and they're often charted in charts like the one I've shown there. And there are increasing signs that they need to license content to continue to improve performance. In particular, they need content that cannot be scraped from the internet. And that falls into two main categories. First, material that is not publicly available at all. So, for example, the entire catalogues of image libraries and movie companies. And secondly, material that may be on the internet, but if they enter a license, they can get a higher quality version. So, for example, they can get music in fully STEM-separated format, which is better for training. Now, this sort of licensing gives AI companies access to high-quality content, to specialist content, and simply content their competitors don't also have. And the fourth trend, which I've illustrated with the DeepSeek logo, which has been in the news for the last 2 weeks, is the falling costs of training AI in terms of compute time. And that will lead to more AI companies competing for performance and more demand for licensed content. If I could have a next slide, thank you. So this slide is just a series of logos which shows some of the deals we've seen in the last 12 months. And all of these companies have entered a licensing deal with AI companies worth somewhere between $10 million and $100 million. So for example, Shutterstock made $104 million from licensing images for AI training in 2023. So finally, I'll end with a few tips for licensing marketplaces and how to license content for AI. And Human Native is delivering such a licensing marketplace. The first critical issue is that licensing content takes a lot of effort for rights holders. Every creative company needs to decide whether to license at all, and that's a big strategic decision. It may also be a controversial decision, which will require discussion with their stakeholders, such as writers and actors. They then need to clear the copyright in their archive, which might include all sorts of third-party rights as well as their own, and they need to consider privacy implications. And then they need to find an AI developer and negotiate a deal. A marketplace like Human Native helps with all of that. But most importantly, once you've tackled these issues for one deal, we can help you multiply the return by making the next 5, 10, or 50 deals. AI developers can find your content on the marketplace, and we can make bespoke introductions to the more obscure AI companies. So 3 final points. Many AI developers need more content than any single rights holder has, and the only viable way to license it is to aggregate that content with other owners. And to do that, you really need to operate through a marketplace. Secondly, we reduce the friction for AI developers by providing a single place for payment, so their engineers can choose all the content they want and make a single payment. And lastly, we help with the technical infrastructure for the preparation and delivery of content to AI companies. That makes it faster and cheaper for the content owners, and it evens out your negotiating positions with AI developers who obviously know the technology better. So I'll just leave my content details up on the last slide. And while I hand over to Luca, who's going to talk about AI outputs, but I'm around after the event for any questions, or you can contact me by email or on LinkedIn.